What was the most legendary thing a student did at your school? My friend once was pissed off at the rest of us guys, 5 of us. He chased us into the bathroom because he wanted to be a tough guy and thought one of us was hiding in a stall. He says, "Peekaboo, I see you," and kicks the stall door in on a teacher we all knew taking a crap. The teacher said, "I see you too, Nathan. Now close the door." I will die the day I forget about that. LOL. Next story. This kid in my class put the school for sale on Craigslist. He provided the school's attendance office number as a point of contact because everyone hated the receptionist there. They were getting calls from interested buyers for days who wanted to buy a multiple acres of property with a big swimming pool and a track. Next story. My English teacher was close to retirement and had really poor eyesight. A mate started the lesson on the right side of the classroom and managed to shuffle both himself and his desk to the back of the room and then over to the left. He then managed to climb through the window, sauntered around the building, came back into the room, and apologized for being late. Next story. Teacher everyone hated just because he was a pure bully. We had a fair snowfall and he was on yard patrol. This shy kid launched a perfect snowball 40 plus feet and it went in his cup of juice, splashing out and soaking him. Kid went from zero to hero real quick. Next story. This kid once brought a backpack full, and I mean completely full of marbles to school. He went to the main staircase near the front up the 3rd floor and dumped the whole bag over the stairwell. How those marbles didn't break the glass trophy case at the bottom is beyond me, but marbles went everywhere. Surprisingly, he never got caught. He either managed to run up one of the stairwells at the end of the hall and get to the bottom before teachers had time to react, or he hid somewhere until the first bell rang. Next story. A kid hit the fire alarm when the mayor was visiting our school. For context, we had an assembly the week before where we were specifically told not to hit the fire alarm during the mayor's visit unless there was an actual fire, as it was a common occurrence at our school to just hit the fire alarm whenever. Well, it sounds like in this case, drawing attention to the fact that the mayor's coming and whatever you do, don't pull that fire alarm. You know someone is going to do it. That's just what kids do, right? Should have put a guard in front of the fire alarm or something. Next story. A special needs kid got a 2-day in-school suspension because he threw a sharpened pencil into the drop ceiling tile. He saw a friend of mine do it and thought it was the coolest thing ever. A kid on the football team heard about what had happened and protested the suspension directly to the assistant principal. The ass principal stuck firm to his decision and threatened, quote, "And if anyone else gets caught, it will be out of school suspensions." The following Monday, the entire 2nd floor was closed down for the morning. Come to find out, the kid and the football team got into the school over the weekend and just blanketed the entire 2nd floor ceiling with sharpened pencils. The video of it was stellar. Next story. Teacher tries to open the door. It does not move. Teacher says he'll ask the maintenance dudes to help open it. While he's away, dude tries to force the door open. Instead, falls through the door, as he just creates a hole. Doing so, it does, however, open the door. Teacher comes back without maintenance guy. Teacher blanks for a moment, then says, "Thanks for opening the door. I'll need to know who to thank." No one answers, but only one dude has pieces of wood in his hair, so he got caught. Next story. Kid broke into the PA speaker room, or whatever it's called, locked himself in, and started publicly dismissing everyone's future detention sentences one by one. Then he started to just burp in the mic before we heard the teachers and the principal break in. The principal shouted, "You damn..." and then it got cut off. Next story. Maybe not legendary, but an interesting and funny experiment. There were 3 high schools in my hometown. 2 of them, both named after famous historical figures of said town, were in a sort of rivalry with each other. Nothing serious, but the students would casually trash talk the other school a lot, mostly in good fun. Each school had a display case with a bust of their respective historical namesakes somewhere in the building. They were just some decoration objects you would pass by every single day and pay little attention to. So we figured we'd test how little attention people actually paid these things. So one night, a few buddies of mine and I got together. Most of us were from my school, but we had a few inside men from the other one as well. We split up into 2 teams, got access to both buildings simultaneously, picked open the very cheap locks on the display cases, grabbed the busts, and switched them. Keep in mind, these schools were not that close to one another, and none of us had been old enough to drive at that point, so we had to carry these effing limestone busts through half the town. We then locked the busts into the display cases again and left. We had managed completely non-destructive entry to both schools, so nobody ever found out. It took almost an entire school school year for anyone to notice. To this day, no teacher has ever found out who was responsible, but no damage was done, so they didn't try too hard to figure it out. Next story. It was legendarily stupid. We had mandatory swimming classes in my sophomore year of high school. Anyways, 3 days a week, the school was getting bomb threats and all of us would have to leave class and go to the gym. The threats always happened at the same time. This went on for weeks and weeks. It turns out there was this kid who didn't want to swim and who was using a payphone down the block to call in threats. This was 1985. He got suspended for 2 weeks and had to take gym for summer school. He's a legend to this day, yet I can't remember his name. Yeah, that sounds like such a 1985 way to resolve conflict. Suspension for 2 weeks and you have to take gym for summer school. Oh my goodness, what a punishment. Next story. I went to high school in the early 70s. Our city had just implemented the desegregation of the high schools by closing the only black high school and busing those kids all over the city to the white high schools. Racial tensions were pretty high at my school. Many of the white kids resented having to go to school with black kids, and the black kids were understandably upset at being yanked out of their own high school and bused. It was lunchtime in the cafeteria. I was sitting at the next table over from where a white guy was sitting. I see a black guy walking up to the white kid. He stops in front of the white kid and says, "Hey, hunky." The white guy says, "Hey, N-word." The whole room got real quiet. I could see kids looking around, trying to decide what to do and where to run or hide. The expectation being that there was about to be a fight. Then both the black guy and the white guy bust out laughing and hug each other. The black guy sits down and they eat lunch together. People looked so confused as they couldn't comprehend what just happened. It turns out both guys were in drama class together and had decided to troll everyone. Well, it is good to see and hear that even back in the early 70s, people of different races could be good friends and eat lunch together. Imagine that. What a concept. Next story. In high school, 2 seniors who had been buds since forever got into a fight in the hallway in between class periods. What makes it legendary is that they first met in Taekwondo class when they were in kindergarten. Movies just show the performative aspect of martial arts. This was just, they were doing flying kicks at each other. It was so brutal. The teachers didn't dare to break them up. They only stopped because they got tired from beating each other senseless. Next story. This is legendary in a bad way. One girl from my wife's high school stole a male teacher's pen drive, found a video of him self-pleasuring off in the couch with 2 other guys also self-pleasuring off, and sent it around to the whole school. This was a fairly conservative place, and he was not openly gay. He didn't get fired or anything, but she says that he was a really nice, fun teacher up until that point, and afterwards was dry and grumpy to most of the students. On the one hand, you probably shouldn't bring a file of your amateur adult content to your job at the high school. On the other hand, what the student did was harmful and illegal on so many different levels. Next story. We had 2 pretty epic senior pranks in my high school days. The first was somebody replaced the tape of the morning announcements with a close-up of a hardcore butt adult content scene. At first, I thought maybe my homeroom teacher was a perv, but turns out it was a broadcast throughout the school. Then, my senior year, a fellow student got the bright idea to dress up as a gorilla and go up on the roof of the school with a bag of bananas. The SWAT team was called in, and it was kind of scary seeing guys with assault rifles outside our classroom window. Then someone told me it was just so-and-so on the roof in a gorilla costume. He got in a lot of trouble considering he was 18 at the time. I mean, look, what part about someone in a gorilla costume with bananas, otherwise unarmed, is requiring the presence of the SWAT team? That seems a little excessive. This actually sounds funny. Man, oh man. Next story. They found out the password for the high school's website and edited all sorts of things. Whether it was exposing certain faculty or being scummy/creepy by rewriting their bios or changing the campus security and safety tab to snitches get stitches. It made quite the buzz for years to come, and as far as I know, they never got caught. Next story. Long ago, during my senior year, we had an advanced chemistry class, so only like 13 students. It was a test day, so we had a plan. Our valedictorian asked to go to the bathroom before the test. He leaves and sprints to the payphones, long ago, next to the cafeteria, and calls the office. Says he's a police officer and needs to speak with our teacher immediately. The office calls him to the phone and he leaves the room. The rest of us bust out a grocery store birthday cake, put up birthday decorations and balloons, pass out party hats, the whole 9 yards. Teacher gets to the office, the Val says, blah blah blah, Mickey Mouse, and hangs up, and sprints back to the class. Tech gets back and we start singing happy birthday. He was like, but it's not my birthday. Needless to say, we had our cake and ate it. Test was postponed until the next week. Next story. One of my friends brought in a universal remote and turned it to the TV in the lunch hall. The TV's original remote had long since been lost, so he had the only one. Instead of the news during lunch, he would change it to sitcoms, etc. The teachers were pretty clueless and kept flicking through dozens of channels only for him to immediately change back. They even started turning it off. He just turned it back on again. About a month of this, and the teachers finally gave up. Nobody except our immediate friend group knew it was him doing this, but the entire school had whispers about this mystery man for ending the scourge that was the news channel. Next story. I don't think the person who did it was ever caught, but during my junior year of high school, someone snuck in chickens. So there were a couple dozen chickens just roaming the halls, and all the teachers were panicking. For some reason, the faculty treated them like rabid dogs. There's nothing funnier than seeing literal roadblocks set up around a chicken and 4 teachers all red-faced and pulling their own hair. Next story. Cut off his thumb in woodshop, and they couldn't find the thumb. It surfaced weeks later in the shop. Months later, I found myself sitting next to the woodshop instructor at dinner on a field trip and got to hear the entire saga in full gory detail while trying to eat dinner. Next story. One day in 7th grade, the class clown was verbally saddened by the fact that our female math teacher didn't wear a dress again like he had asked. So he promised her that tomorrow he will wear a dress as well so that she wouldn't be the only one wearing a dress. Well, next day comes around and she isn't in a dress. Clown comes in, not wearing one either, and is shocked that she didn't wear one. She responded with, "Neither did you." Then the effing legend started stripping to reveal that under his normal clothes, he was wearing his sister's dress. We all died laughing, and he dead-ass wore it the rest of class. It was too uncomfortable for him, though, so he changed back for the rest of the day. Effing legend. Next story. We had an English teacher in training with poor classroom management skills. She understood little of what was going on in front of her. To prove that point, a friend of mine jumped from a classroom window. It was a good 6 feet to the ground, mid-class, and then casually walked through the schoolyard, back into the school, and then came back into the classroom. He told the teacher that he had gone to the bathroom. She nodded and just kept on with her lesson. Next story. I still have no clue who did it, but someone went around spraying mace or pepper spray or something into the ventilation shafts during lunch. My school had 2 lunch periods to accommodate our population. The first time was in the second lunch period, during which I had class. I was walking in the stairwells to class when I started coughing, along with a lot of others. It felt like I'd swallowed sawdust. I was near the science lab, so I thought it might have been a chemical reaction gone wrong. The next day during lunch, the upper form was completely deserted. As I was going upstairs, my friends and I started noticing we felt the same, like there was sawdust in our throats. When we opened the door off the stairwell to the form, the effect increased tenfold and a teacher ushered us back into the stairwell. We'd barely gotten to class when the entire school was evacuated. If the culprit was ever found, I never heard about it, and word spreads fast, so I'm guessing they got away with it. To the culprit, F you for the throat pain, but thanks for the 15-minute evacuation so I didn't have to go to science class. Next story. It was my senior prom, and my class's valedictorian, a dude named Tyler, had finished for a prolonged period of time. Just as people were noticing and asking if anyone had seen him, he reappears in a skin-tight Spider-Man costume on stage with the band and starts breakdancing and pelvic thrusting on stage. 2 years later, he began fighting crime, this time in a different costume. No, really. Next story. I've shared this story before, but it's probably one of my favorite memories of high school. Halloween costumes were banned at my high school because some idiots, like 10 years before that, dressed up and used it as an excuse to hide their face while they vandalized the school. My senior year, more than half the class decided that we would still dress up and march into the school together in the morning. We all knew we would be punished right away, but it didn't matter. I stayed up all night making a suit of armor out of metallic duct tape and cardboard, along with a broomstick horse to ride. Here's a picture of me that ended up in the yearbook. The next day, we all gathered in the parking lot and waited for everyone to show up. People went all out, and there were a lot of amazing costumes. And after about 20 minutes of waiting, we started our march in. The deans had learned of our plan and were waiting for us right as we entered. They started pulling people aside in groups and taking student IDs to hand out detentions. In my group, there was one guy dressed up as an ATM, so when the dean asked for his ID, he started making ATM noises and then slipped the ID out through the slot where you would put your debit card in. It was one of the funniest things, and I was so jealous that my costume was not as clever as his. Even though having so many of us participate was pretty awesome, his costume just made that whole event for me. Yeah, students, once you're unconcerned with the consequences of like getting a detention or suspension, really the superintendents at school have nothing to hold over your head. So it's like just have fun with whatever prank you're planning. Next story. There was this guy who was almost universally liked at my high school. Did everything, AP classes, theater, football, track. His grades were good, but he wasn't the valedictorian. That didn't stop him from getting up during the graduation ceremony and giving a speech like there was nothing strange about it, and they let him finish, too. Next story. For a senior prank, a group of kids dressed up in all black with masks. They ran down the main hall of the school with industrial buckets of cheap vegetable oil, pouring it everywhere. I mean everywhere, right before the bell rang for passing period. Kids were slipping and falling all over the place and spreading the oil even further throughout the school. It was so bad they ended up sending everyone home so they could clean up the mess. The school did an investigation, pulling camera footage from campus and interviewing students. Of course, the kids were bragging to friends about their accomplishments, so the suspects were pulled into the office. They didn't even need to interrogate them. They knew they all did it. How? They were all wearing the exact same shoes when they pulled it off. They were suspended for 5 days. School was pretty cool with the whole thing. Next story. School just decided to give everyone iPads a few years after letting physics class use them as their textbooks. At lunch, everyone turned on AirDrop to share memes, which they weren't supposed to do. However, the teachers let it slide and figure it isn't worth punishing since everyone does it and nothing super inappropriate has been found yet. Drugs, adult content, etc. One kid in my younger siblings' class airdropped a meme about being the principal that wasn't inappropriate and used a photo of him when he was a math teacher earlier in his career. He found it on some archived page in the internet. From what I recall, the text used was more looking for laughs about how he used to teach math and is now the principal. Basically just some dumb stuff that staff would have laughed off after telling him not to use school staff and airdrop memes. The kid who did this had never acted out in school. The worst he probably did was forget an assignment or two. He got detention for a whole week. The principal has a complex. No other student has gotten in as much trouble for airdropping things at the school. Next story. A few people decided to do a senior prank. I was not involved with that prank, but I did another. They broke into the bus yard with old electric impacts and removed the nuts holding all the benches to the studs in the floor. They glued the doors shut with silicone. Then they deflated all the school bus tires. The next morning, all the bus drivers showed up to flat tires. Not punctured, just released through the valve. While someone was inflating the tires, someone else was cutting through the silicone. When they got all the tires pumped back up, they went to leave, and shortly into their drive, all the benches went flying every which way. There was no school that day. Yeah, you gotta love the multi-layered prank. Right when you think you're in the clear and out of the woods, here comes another bout of trouble. Very, very well thought out, and ultimately harmless. You didn't damage anything, just caused some inconvenience. Got school canceled, so I like that one. Next story. A few years after I graduated, the school was preparing to take their assessment tests, which rate the schools. Many people think these tests are a waste of time, but they're important to school administrators. So the principal orders that some classes are interrupted in order to make sure that all kids have refreshers in some basic math and writing skills. A few kids in a U.S. history honors class were angry. They resented the interruption, as the classes were preparing them for an independent AP exam that awarded college credit. In response, they decided to intentionally sabotage the assessment tests. Our school was in an upper middle class area and regularly scored in low 90s, the top 10%. Then suddenly, the school scored in the mid to low 80s. Turns out that 15 to 20 students out of 300 turning in absolute zeros can impact an average score. School administrators went berserk. Stories were circulated, students were threatened, but nothing came of it. The students never confessed, and the tests were anonymous. But school rules didn't forbid poor performance. It helped that the students were led by kids whose parents were well trained in protesting during the 1960s. It was a great scene. Next story. In middle school, there was a kid in my grade that absolutely hated being at school, so he was always trying to find ways to make everyone else as miserable as him. My math teacher at the time was quite a pacifist and eventually resorted to ignoring his behavior. The student did not like that at all. So one day, he brought in an electric razor and snuck up on her before class had started and everyone was walking in. All of a sudden, everyone heard a shriek, and we looked to see that the student with the razor in hand and hair on the ground. He basically gave her a reverse mohawk. Lucky for her, the rest of her hair seemed to cover it to a degree. That was the last day we saw that student. He got what he wanted, though. However, I believe we heard that she pressed charges on him. Next story. I'm going to have to throw my own kid under the bus here. My whole response to the situation is the Will Ferrell meme. I'm not even mad. That's amazing. My kid and his best friend started the bubblegum cartel in middle school. Him and his best friend, they're both Italians, it seems you can't put Italians together without forming a criminal organization, started a bubblegum MLM and got a good portion of the school involved. Kids on the bottom sold it. My guys provided and made the money. Apparently, it got so involved, the middle school on 3 separate occasions had to have a town hall to inform the kids the bubblegum cartel has to stop, and that they don't know who the perpetrators are. But the kids selling gum needs to stop as they're doing all the work and selling gum while the perpetrators are making all the money and they're being taken advantage of. In all of middle school for both years, not a single student turned them in, and the school has no idea that my son and his BFF were the head of the cartel. I was wondering why he kept asking me to buy him gum wherever we went. I thought it was a phase. He then informed me it was free gum to sell. I couldn't stop laughing my ass off. My partner was incredulous that my son took advantage of me, but I couldn't get mad about it though. I should have been. That night, for the first time in my life, I was floating on clouds and felt what peace actually feels like, because I realized my kid is going to be okay. Next story. There were these 2 mean girls who eventually got called out by one of the quiet kids during class. Their boyfriends were there as well and tried to fight them. He beat both of them up and splashed some Gatorade on the girls. The teacher didn't really care, so he walked out and never came back, I guess. It was around the last 2 weeks of school, so I guess nothing happened to him luckily. I hope he's doing well. Next story. Group hot in the lunchroom planters. Several guys got a VW Beetle on the roof above the main entrance one night. Created a fake student that was elected homecoming king. This was not discovered by the faculty for 3 months. Post update. Could not remember the fake student name, but pinged an old classmate. It was Elmo Dudley. Dumb teachers. Made the local news. What a riot. Next story. One of the farm kids in my school brought a dump truck full of hay bales from his family farm and literally blocked off every single entrance and exit to the building with them. He did this really early in the morning, and the school was in the middle of nowhere, so nobody knew exactly who did it except me, his partner in crime. He canceled school for a day and a half. The reason why he did this? The principal was an absolute scumbag who hated kids. This kid's sister got in trouble for something she didn't do, and the absolute a-hole brought her to the principal's office and made her apologize for trashing the girls' bathroom to the entire school over the PA. When we were done with the escapade, we also filled the a-hole's car with turkey feed through his open skylight the first day back, while everyone was at a rally about the aforementioned hay baling. Everyone had an idea of who did it, but since nobody was around for it and the cameras weren't working, we got away with it. My friend was called to the office to face the same date as his sister anyway, but when the PA turned on, the absolute legend said this. Hello everyone, I'm sorry that the school got turned into a barnyard, but on the bright side, I bet it made Mr. Principal feel at home. An ass's favorite meal is hay. Next story. When I was a student teacher, some quiet kid was getting crap from a bully for like a week. So he waited till they were in music class and the bully was on the piano, facing the wall. Then very deliberately picked up a guitar, stalked across the room, and smashed it to pieces against the bully's head. All of this was caught on CCTV. That was one video that definitely got circulated among faculty. Next story. Had a friend, Will, who didn't finish an English assignment on time. As punishment, the teacher asked him to look up the definition of and write a 5-page essay on the need for diligence. When he opened the dictionary, the first definition was careful and persistent work and effort. The second definition was a public stagecoach. Will proceeded to write a tremendous 5-pager on the need, or lack thereof, of public stagecoaches. Next story. We had a strict bathroom policy at a high school I taught at. The office secretary implemented and enforced it like a tyrant. I personally had an issue with this and let my students go when they asked and would email her and tell her. I just couldn't deny this to my students. I knew there was the occasion where a kid was not truly in need of the restroom, but wasn't willing to deny those who did, so I documented and alerted the secretary when I sent a kid down. I mean, the kids were overflowing the toilets by stuffing things down them, smoking in the stalls, and all kinds of stuff, so I understood we had an issue, but I still had a hard time denying them. Anyhow, it's a normal school day, and my students are all busy working at their desks, and I'm sitting at mine with another teacher on the other side, and we're calling students up individually to review their work and guide them to the next part of the two-subject project. As we're in between students, we prepare and make notes for the next student, and a male student comes up and leans against my desk. He says my name, and the other teacher is talking, and I'm looking her way, and the student says my name and then asks if he can go to the bathroom. No more than 15 seconds passes, and the teacher stops talking to me, and I turn towards the student, and he's now making this face, and urine is streaming across my desk. He asks if he can go to the bathroom again, and I'm like, what the heck? Yes, of course. And following him down the hall, I asked him why he did that, and he said the previous class and teacher wouldn't let him go, and I was taking too long to answer. I was in shock and pissed. Yeah, no pun intended, but I would always let them go in my class, and that didn't need to happen. It upset me that he had been holding it for long enough that he couldn't control himself, and I made that well known to the secretary and the administration, and no longer told the secretary or gave her any power over students and bathroom issues. He flooded my desk and the hallway. Poor kid. Next story. I had a buddy that was known for knocking out more than one father-son combo during after-school fights. One where the parents ran up to break it up. He turned around and clocked dad. Another when he was fighting near a Main Street bus stop and the father happened to see the fight while driving by. Unfortunately, when the dad hopped out to stop it, the legend turned around and KO'd dad right on Main Street. Wild. Next story. This kid had been making bongs in our ceramics class and trying to pass them off as sculptures. Well, finally, the teacher caught on and instructed him to stop making bongs in her class, and noticed his eyes were red and glassy. Upon realizing that he was high as a kite, she sent him to the vice principal, who ended up calling the kid's dad. His dad had to leave work to get him, and as soon as he pulled up, Roger walked out to the car, and his dad pulled out a set of jumper cables out of his trunk and repeatedly struck him with them. This was all in perfect view of the ceramics classroom windows. The teacher was horrified. Next story. I'm going to take legendary as meaning crazy here. Once a kid from my high school got onto the roof in a gorilla mask and started shouting. Not that interesting, right? Except someone called in a bomb/gun/weapon threat, and we ended up with a SWAT team, state police, and helicopters arresting a gorilla man on the roof. I think it was meant to be a senior prank. Okay, so this is the second time we've heard about the SWAT being called on Gorilla Man on the roof, so I don't know, maybe these two are classmates or something. That's a small world moment if I've ever heard of one. Next story. Not students, but the senior class made the national news way back when I was still in kindergarten. Senior prank? They bought 2 Madagascar hissing cockroaches and bred them. End of the year comes. I believe they smeared meat all over the halls, then released the roaches. Needless to say, the high school was closed for a bit. One of the people in that class is now my step-sibling. Next story. A good friend of mine was on holiday at options time. His year head told him, tough luck, I decide your future. For months, my friend broke into school and crapped on the teacher's desk. The same teacher ridiculed me for not wanting year photos. My friend arranged for me and the rest of the class to not pay for them. The same teacher became headmaster years after I left. He was great with the sports teams, but a terrible teacher and human being. Next story. One kid jumped out of a second-story window to avoid the teacher catching him for bringing vodka to class in a water bottle. The alcohol definitely helped his survival. Another kid self-pleasured themselves during English class and was ogling the teacher the entire time but would look away when she scanned the room while teaching. Me, a horrified 16-year-old, watched as this kid finished and wiped his hand under his desk. Teacher never saw a thing. Next story. In high school, I was way into music and had a 3-hour span where I had back-to-back-to-back classes in the band room. Band, orchestra, and music theory. A friend who had the same schedule and I were throwing a party that weekend, and of course we needed lots of booze, so we hatched a plan to forge the band director's signature on an off-campus pass, drive to Tecate, Mexico, get the booze, and get back before our last music class. We get to Mexico, buy the booze, and toss the spare tire from his mom's brand new car so we can stash the tequila there and head back to school. Made it back with minutes to spare. Had a legendary party that night. Next story. Friends of mine during senior year wrote in the snow, "From us to you, a big F.U." It was legendary for 3 reasons. 1, the field was directly in front of the giant window on the main stairs, visible from the ground level and upper level. Each letter was about 10 by 4 feet. 2, the principal knew it was our group of friends, but not which ones, and never found out. And 3, the message was impeccably well written. The principal complimented us on that, which is additionally incredible considering how drunk they were when it was written. Next story. Not one student, but all seniors. It was customary at our school that on a hot day near the end of the year, seniors would start a water balloon fight. It was usually quite small and the teachers were used to it, so they could put a stop to it quickly. Not this time, though. We had been dropping hints here and there for several days/weeks beforehand, talking about it in hallways, within earshot of teachers, leaving behind empty balloons, etc. The day before the actual attack, after school hours, we brought thousands of balloons to the school, and a good 10 to 20 people started filling them at water fountains and in the toilets. We kept them in big buckets, filled with water so the balloons wouldn't burst, and hid them in the bushes around the school. The day of the attack, we had some mock maneuvers. Groups of people would suddenly start running towards the school entrance, the toilets, the principal office. Teachers would be running to stop us, only for nothing to happen. Then came the actual attack. Everyone suddenly ran into the bushes, grabbed the buckets, and started unleashing hell on the other kids. The teachers closed in, trying to destroy our balloons, but there were just so many they couldn't get rid of them. Everyone was soaking wet after. The most legendary thing, though, wasn't the number of balloons or the planning of the attack. It was the fact that each and every senior participated in that. Buying balloons, bringing buckets, filling balloons, etc. Everyone did something. Despite all the high school drama, we managed to all come together for this epic prank. Next story. Group of guys stacked a bunch of the cafeteria tables on the roof into a pyramid shape. At the top of the pyramid, they put one of the on-campus security golf carts on the top table. They had to take out the engine to lift it there and put it back in once it was on the roof. School wasn't pleased. I think it did some damage to the roof and it made the news. Was pretty funny though. Next story. It was before my time, but I've had multiple teachers confirm the truth of the story. Long ago, someone donated an old VW Bug to said school to have an auto class. The last year that class was available, a group of seniors disassembled the car and reassembled it around a tree. In the middle of the night on a weekend, I believe in a single session. The staff was so impressed, no charges were pressed, and they left it there for the week. It was gone the following Monday, and I wasn't able to find anyone who knew exactly what happened to it. Next story. This one kid flipped out on a sub, and then the short bastard climbed on a chair at the back and climbed out the window, which would be hard since the only bit that can open is at the top, and started shouting at the women, "I'm gonna jump!" Climbed back into the class with the teacher only saying how you need to respect me and respect your other teachers, which he doesn't, and then soon he F's right off after throwing a table across the class. Another time he sneaked past the teacher in the class when it was a little dark for a movie, and sat in the same spot for half an hour without getting caught. Came out intentionally for he was bored when he was sent out. From what I heard, he skipped class and attempted to go to a different year building after lockdown. Next story. Oh man, I have so many stories that fit, but I think I'll go with this one. One of the kids in my class was a notorious troublemaker. We call him Yazoo because that was the only substance I think I've ever seen him consume in my 5 years of knowing him. Teachers hated him because he had a bad attitude. While he was sometimes all right, he could sometimes be really rude without any kind of warning or provocation. Anyway, we were in maths one time, and Yazoo was dicking around like usual. Bear in mind, this was around the middle of the day, pretty much right after lunch. Our teacher was getting progressively more and more pissed off with Yazoo until eventually she made the fatal mistake of saying to him, "If you're not going to pay attention, you can just leave." He shrugged his shoulders, said, "Okay," packed his things, and went home. No one tried to stop him or anything. I don't even think he got in any trouble for it, since he was technically just doing what he was told. Next story. On the last day of sixth form, someone climbed onto the roof, drew a giant chicken in white paint, expecting it to be discovered fairly soon. It was actually discovered 3 days later, when Google Maps happened, and someone looked up the school, only to see a giant. Next story. Not me, but a college friend told me that at their high school, there is an anonymous group of people who would crap in bullies' backpacks for years. I don't know if they were ever caught, but it's pretty funny how they were basically the heroes of their school and never announced their identities. Pretty justified, if you ask me. Yeah, I'm gonna agree with this. Bullies need to have their backpacks crapped in. Simple as that. You treat people like crap, you're gonna get crap in your bag. Next story. I don't recall who did this, but while running during gym class, our gym teacher said, "Come on, guys, my girlfriend can run faster than you." Another student said, "Come on, Mr. Name, your hand can't run that fast." That story went all over the school like wildfire, lol. Next story. Remember Channel 1? News service piped into US high schools. Here's how it worked. There's a giant satellite dish that would download the daily feed to a VHS cassette. That VHS would be played on a VCR that was on a master TV in the AV room. That master TV, when played, would automatically turn on a wall-mounted TV in every classroom in the high school. The TVs would turn off automatically after Channel 1 aired. For those that might not remember, Anderson Cooper made his TV debut on Channel 1, appearing live from Kosovo and other war-torn areas. Anyways, most teachers didn't use the TV other than for Channel 1, and they were mounted high in the room, as in not very easy to access. And I don't even remember where the buttons were, or if it could only be changed or turned with a remote. What I do know is that most teachers had long lost the remote. Getting close to the end of the school year, and some legend takes a hardcore adult content flick on VHS, puts it in the master VCR, and takes the key, and the backup key to the AV room, and puts them on the VCR. Then he locks both doors on the way out, after pressing play. Our whole high school was echoing some adult content star screaming as she was getting pounded on every TV in the school. Next story. Legendary in a bad way. There was a lot of gang fights breaking out for several months for no reason at all. Like, there was peace between the gangs, then suddenly everyone was at each other's throats. The last fight that finally brought an end to it was when a teacher was pinning one of the kids to the ground, and the other kid came running up and kicked him in the face like a football. The whole school went silent for 5 minutes just trying to process what happened. Next story. We had this big dude at my high school, like 400-ish pounds. Sweet man, like really friendly and happy. Dude was really well liked. The guy broke his ankle while in marching band and got a cast and crutches. A couple days after coming back to school, he went to take a flight of stairs and his crutches snapped as he descended. He wound up breaking both ankles and his ribs, if I recall correctly. After that, he was known as Crutchy. He liked the name, and it really stuck. He's like 35 now and still goes by Crutchy. Last I heard, he lost a bunch of weight and still lives in my hometown. Good dude. Legendary name back home. Next story. It isn't up there with the legendary, but it's a funny story. We had strict rules on jackets. No logos, black, white, or gray only, no drawings. It has to be completely plain. It went as far as taking away their jackets during winter and not giving them back, which to this day I still believe is effing abhorrent, and that the ministry needed a good lawsuit to make up for it. But anyway, my sister was wearing a black jacket with Neuer written on it in white text. A teacher stopped her to do the usual yelling and lecturing. My sister calmly responded, "Neuer means black, therefore my jacket is completely black." That shut her up good. Next story. A student got into an inflatable Tyrannosaurus Rex costume on Halloween and ran amok on campus during lunch hour, pestering and laughing with the students and posing for pictures with the lunch ladies, teachers, and the principal. He did it every year from freshman to junior year, because of the pandemic, of course. Note, the student was me. I was the weird kid. Next story. When I was in high school, I was a senior for this. We had a running theme every year that the seniors would do a senior prank. Now, we had a life-size knight that was on a large metal horse outside on the property. My best friend at the time came up with the idea we could steal it and hide it, but bring it back later. So one night on a Saturday at like midnight, we went to the school and grappled that thing off and took it. People talked about it for weeks until we returned it on graduation day. It was in the yearbook. Next story. Our principal and vice principal were not well liked. Kid, may have been me, drew a huge poster with vice principal taking it in the ass from the principal. It was hung up in the main common after lunch let out. Like it was straight out of a movie. The principal walked by and saw the poster. There was at least 60 to 70 kids laughing their asses off. He ripped the poster down and went on his way. Next story. Our school was putting in a brand new turf field and it was taking a long time. One of my friends decided to dig up our state tree and plant it right in the middle of the field. Apparently, it's illegal to uproot our state tree where I'm from, so it stayed there for 2 weeks and halted the construction. The workers literally moved dirt around like it was supposed to be there. I was told you have to get state's approval to dig up a state tree, so I guess they had to wait on that. Eventually, they realized that he just broke off a branch and planted that, so they were able to uproot it. At least that's the excuse I heard as to why it was taken up. It literally looked like a tiny Christmas tree in the middle of a dirt field. Definitely didn't look like a branch. It was a huge mystery as to who did it and who confronted my one troublemaker friend. He gave us all a little smile. We're all pretty sure he did it. Gave the whole school a few good laughs for a while. Next story. Not legendary, just overall cringe. In 5th grade, this kid Mason had a huge crush on this girl Caitlin. She was most definitely not interested. He started out by writing love letters and stuffing them in her cubby hole where the book bags go. She would throw them away like they were trash, never even bothering to read them. So he decided to try a different approach. One day, our teacher, I think during social studies or something, asked a question and Mason threw his hand up. The teacher called on him and he stands up. He then goes, "I don't know the answer to your question, Mrs. D, but I do know one thing. I'm in love with Caitlin and I want her to be my wife and I want to get her pregnant." The whole class was stunned. The poor girl was shocked, horrified, extremely embarrassed, terrified, etc., all in one. Our teacher pulls him out of the class and starts yelling at him. Everyone starts laughing or gossiping. His parents got called in, and then he got pulled out of our class for the rest of the year. To this day, 14 to 15 years later, I have no idea what he thought would come out of pulling a stunt like that. The kid had balls, I'll say that. Showed no fear and had all the courage to do that, taking his ultimate shot, but was just so cringe and basically sexually harassed that poor girl in the process. So, not legendary, but I'll never forget it. One of my strangest, craziest school experiences, lol. I mean, confessing your love for a girl that you like, that's one thing, but I think going overboard when you're like, yeah, I just want to get you pregnant and wife you up, that's kind of gross and cringe, so totally agree with that. Next story. Last days of school before the exams, a guy drove his bike in the school, pulling off some wheelies, and finally doing a burnout indoors, which filled the hall with smoke and caused permanent damage to the marble floor. Shortly after that, in the middle of the exam period, a friend and I found where the main power switch for the entire school was, and of course we had to switch it off. Alarms started going off. Everybody freaked out. The generator failed to start, and generally, it was a very bad day for the teachers trying to figure out what happened. I don't know what was more stupid, the guy with the bike or us. For anyone wondering, I attended a technical vocational school. You can see all kinds of stupid crap pulled off there. Next story. When my mother was going to school, she and her friends had a choir class. Their science teacher taught them this. Due to surface tension, you can use a cup full of water. Place something over the opening and place the cup on the table upside down. Then take the covering off, and the liquid will stay there. Apparently, their science teacher was setting them up for a prank. My mother was part of it too, and they did exactly that to their choir teacher's mug. Once he came in, he noticed, and when he lifted his mug, the coffee inside just splooshed out of the mug and onto his desk. I'd consider it legendary, knowing that this was a harmless prank. Next story. My best friend in high school was a chubby gamer with zero social skills named Hunt. I was his only real friend. He had a unique wheeze for a laugh and was probably the funniest person I've ever known. Too bad no one gave him a chance. Old gym teacher, who was an ex-Olympian, used to always pick on him because he would mumble and never paid attention. One day in gym class, while me and Hund were shooting hoops, the gym teacher was beside the court talking to the grade 12 athlete of the year named Abry. We were in grade 10. The gym teacher started talking smack about Hund's shot. He challenged Hund one-on-one. Hund mumbled/laughed it off, saying, "No," in his own weird way. Teacher said, "Okay, fine, both of you," points at me and Hund, versus us. him and a brie. I snapped yes at him faster than Hun could reply. Some background knowledge. Hun ball court nickname was Hot Sauce, because he'd dribble in the wildest, most comical style, sometimes getting past a defender, but would totally whiff the ball when he got to the net. I had a signature hook shot that I could shoot from far off, and it was accurate AF. The game was up to 5. Teacher cockily gave us the ball first. The strategy was to use Hun to fake pass and go for the hook shot, and to avoid letting the teacher get possession because he had a nasty jump shot. It worked. I scored 4 times straight. It got harder to pull off every time. Our opponents started taking us seriously after the 3rd point, and my 4th point barely/awkwardly made it in. I tried it a 5th time and missed. Gerardo showed off his shooting skills, got 3 shots in back-to-back. The score is 4-3 for us. I'm starting to lose hope. Hun, who wanted nothing to do with this game, had no expectation of winning, and hoped I would carry him as the game played on, flipped a switch and stuck on the teacher like white on rice. Gerardo passed to a brie and laid it up. It's 4-4. Game point. Hun on Gerardo. Steals the ball, steps back, and shoots like he's Kobe Bryant from near 3-point range. No fear in his eyes, and knocks one in. I've never seen him cheer and wheeze as hard as he did that day. Next story. Freshman year in a largish eastern U.S. high school about 20 years ago. My homeroom teacher was one of those old school, button-down, stood for no bullcrap types. Homeroom was very quiet and formal. Until one morning, about halfway through the year, the teacher, Miss H, told us that homeroom was to be extended for a special announcement. I still remember Miss H's straight back and composed yet serious demeanor when she read a letter from the principal explaining that a student had been depositing paper milk and orange juice containers filled with his own feces at random spots throughout the school. No one in my homeroom dared to laugh. Next story. Got ketchup taken away from all the students. So for lunch, they'd have massive tubs of ketchup packets. So me and my buddies would grab a handful. Once we'd finish eating, we'd walk around the school and throw ketchup packets under teachers' closed doors. Not hard enough for them to burst open, but just to annoy the teachers we and obviously everyone else hated. After I think 2-ish weeks, they were putting a single ketchup packet with the school lunch and was not letting anyone take any more. This happened for the rest of that school year, and the first month or so of the next school year. Never got caught either. You know, if I was going to this school, I would thank you for doing this, OP. I can't stand ketchup. It's just a personal thing of mine. Ketchup, ugh, ick, doesn't belong on anything. Next story. We have an invasive ivy that was taking over the whole area, kudzu. On the way to our school was an old hotel with a huge area infested with kudzu, and they had deployed like 12 goats to slowly eat it all and get rid of it. It was gaining local attention, and so a local news station had stopped to do a story on it. Kid is driving home from school alone and impulsively pulls over and tells them he's a goat expert and was getting his PhD. They featured him on the local news that night as a goat expert. It was like 3 minutes of him rambling made-up goat facts. Video caused a big scandal at my private school, and it was pulled from the internet. Then, last day of his senior year, they showed it to the whole school. He was a character for sure.